thinking like, wait, no. Like, I really like this guy. Like, this cannot be for real. Like, he is on the sex offender registry.
Yeah.
Like, there are news stories about this. Like, this is for real. I think this is probably the best story. This one didn't even happen. I was going on a date with this guy. He calls me a little, like, earlier. He's like, do you want to meet up a little bit ahead of time? And I was like, well, I've got a lot of work to do. And he's like, okay, have fun at your meetings. And I was like, sorry, I have a job. I'm like, if you want to go get a drink, go for it. But like, let's just meet up at 7:15. I'm walking to the train. It's about 6:45. So like, I planned ahead. And he calls me and he's like, well, where are you? And I'm like, well, we said 7:15, right? And he's like, yeah. It's like, okay, I'm walking to the train. He's like, okay, I'll see that. So I'm at the train and it is running a little bit behind. He keeps blowing up my phone. He's like, where are you? And he's like texting me weird things like, Uber? Like all question marks. And I'm like, no, I told you I'm waiting for the train. It's running a little behind. Like, I'm on my way. And he goes, perfect, love you. And at that point, I am a little concerned about what I'm about to get into.
Right, that's a red flag.
Right. So I text my friends and I'm like, hey guys, like I shouldn't go on this, right? Like this is weird. And they're like, oh, it's absolutely weird, but it'll be a good story. You should just go and see what happens. Exactly.
And I'm glad you went on this date because now we have a story for you to tell.
Here's the best part. The date didn't happen. He calls me again. At this point, I am irritated. And he's like, where are you? Like, where? He yells at me. So I say, you know what? I'm not doing this. I hang up and I turn around and I don't meet him.
I think you made the right choice, but I think that story definitely gets more interesting if you're still here.
Just to add ice on the cake, he's like, so I made a reservation at Harry Carey's.
First date, Harry Carey's?
It's a little bit of an interesting choice.
I would rather go to Parlor Pizza.
Agreed. So yeah, that was like one of the...
There's gotta be more.
Well, so here's a fun story. This one's called Chester the Molester. It was a first date. He seemed like a really nice guy. He was a software engineer, good conversation. He was fun. I was like, okay, this guy gets a second date. I used to be very, very insistent on like, I need to like know your last name. I kind of like to like just make sure like I'm not getting into anything dangerous. So I didn't have a chance to do it before the first date, but so I'd gone on the first date and I didn't do this until after the fact. Normally I'm not expecting anything crazy to come up. Boom, mugshot.
Oh.
Back in our
I do
days.
have a mugshot. My friends put it up at my job, and underneath it, they just wrote "Employee of the Month."
Oh no! As long as you didn't do anything really, really bad, like everybody is entitled to have a mugshot. Like, I mean, I almost got one. I almost got a public intox in college.
I got arrested because my cousin kicked in one of my roommate's doors because I lived there. The dude gave my name to the cops. I'm gonna make my cousin come on and tell that story. He already said that he would because he ended up getting his eye split open and we ended up at that emergency room.
It's not one of those things that you're like, oh my god.
It didn't ruin my life.
Exactly. Chester's mugshot was a little bit different.
Okay.
Chester, it turns out, had a former career as a teacher.
Oh no.
And Chester slept with a 15-year-old student while he was employed as a teacher. I'm thinking like, wait, no. Like, I really like this guy. Like, this cannot be for real. Like, he is on the sex offender registry. Like, there are news stories about this. Like, this is for real. I never engage with that guy again because that like is a whole other host of red flags. Don't touch kids, Chester. Here's where it gets weird.
Oh.
So I'm telling my friend about this story. She goes, that sounds really familiar. I'm like, what? Turns out she knew exactly who I was talking about because she was a senior at the high school when it happened. So she knew all about this. I'm like, okay, that's really weird,
That's
but
crazy.
well, I'm telling a coworker about this story. Totally different coworker. These people have never met each other. They don't know each other. She goes, that sounds really familiar. Come again? He was the student band teacher at her high school. And she's like, oh yeah, I heard about that. I know what you're talking about.
At a different school or the same school?
Completely different school.
That's crazy. So he jumped around to a couple different schools.
So he was basically a predator. The part that baffles me more than anything, he was engaged.
Oh my gosh.
Chester the molester on the sex offender registry was engaged and dating other people.
Does she know?
I have no idea.
Because that's the thing, not everybody does the deep dive and...
Right.